we had a great conversation with my group. I had particularly just want to bring up John Webster. He's going to be one of our presenters tomorrow, and it's going to be showing a video this afternoon. He actually has a business dealing with biochar, and we asked him, well, what are the opportunities and barriers? And he said, just do it. You know, he, like us, lamenting all the world's problems. And so he said, I'm going to start a biochar company. And he even admitted to having to leverage his house so he could get a mobile pyrolysis unit, but he's making it happen. I am inspired, as they do in Italy, where they thump their chests like that. So if you didn't get a chance to share everything you wanted to, we have the evaluation link. Mike got it right back into the chat box for us. Open that up. Got plenty of opportunity for you to write information in there, so please take advantage of that. And we've got a window here for the next 12, 13 minutes to just kind of allow our breakout facilitators to share back some of the key messages and points that we went over. In addition to what John has done, some of the things that came up in my talk included watershed. You know, our forests are our watersheds. It's where we get our water. Here in Arizona, we have national forest even in the desert, so that we have that watershed available to the cities. And so that was one of our big issues. And Joe Miller said very distinctly, I like how I put it, how rapidly can we deploy this knowledge that we just learned from Deb and Nate into forest management? Because we know they're doing the research, we know it's all this close, but it really isn't functioning on the ground and being part of all those decision-making processes that are happening at this time. So, you know, perhaps that can get accelerated through the National Forest System and into our state forestry programs, but just learning so much that's ready to go here. Eli Jensen is a consultant out of Chino Valley in Arizona, and said one of the bottlenecks we have is we have some timber projects, and what do we do with that material? And so just being able to get biomass going, whether it's going to be bioenergy, biochar, you know, that's kind of the next nut to break. And so that's good. So I'm going to hold it up there and allow my other presenters to come on, and we'll just get as far as we can over the next few minutes. And again, thank you so much for spending this time. We can come back to this information and try to summarize it later. So Tony, were you one of our breakout people?
I was. All right. Okay, yeah, I am. So a couple of, you know, we talked about a whole range of things, but one of them was kind of building off of this notion that turning, you know, kind of what's right now wood waste going up in smoke, primarily slash piles, and you know, taking that out of that you know, smoke production and putting into biochar is one interest, and folks talked about, and kind of a more consolidated set of extension and education materials. And then the you know, another theme is that there's a whole range of uses for biochar, from kind of backyard domestic uses for, you know, just like, you know, compost piles and gardening, all the way to, you know, agricultural and rangeland restoration and reclamation and soil health, to, you know, post lineland, post fire. A lot of these large areas that were burned by fire in the last year or two can really maybe benefit from that soil health amendment. So lots of interest and opportunities for different scales or use, in addition to scales of biochar production.
Great. Thank you for taking that time with the group and summarizing it so well for us, Tony. Another one of our breakout facilitators was Rebecca. And so Rebecca Senior, you want to share your group, please?
Yes, I was co-facilitating, so let me put a few words in, and then maybe my co-facilitator could jump in too. We had a lot of people that are producing some of the equipment to produce biochar. Many people from New Mexico, they were making things that are used throughout the world, really. And so that was really fascinating. A lot of grant-funded work. And one of the things that I did put in chat just now was the past webinars that are on Chris's extension site is there, and go look at the one on making kilns. And my co-presenter, what would you like to add? My co-facilitator. Maybe unmute and add. I don't know if they have the ability to unmute themselves.
Well, that's great. And thank you for bringing up those kilns. Darren McAvoy, who's going to be speaking here shortly, was a presenter for those. And so we're going to learn some more about it. I've got a note here. Eva, were you one of our facilitators as well? Would you like to share about your group, please?
Sure. I helped out. We talked about, echoing what a lot of people said, the biomass bottleneck for producing for the mandated thinning that needs to happen in Arizona. That's a known problem, and so that's one of the reasons to come here is find alternative to the non-marketable stuff that piles up and impedes progress. We also talked about something that none of us knew about, which is how biochar intersects with organic certification and how that might affect the market and who's using it and who's interested. So that was a question that emerged. Regional supply, so that you're not shipping it all over the country, was another issue, sort of barrier that we brought up. And then we talked about how when people get excited, sometimes they take the ball and run with it, and we don't want to create perverse incentives of overvaluing biochar compared to some of the other things that living plants and trees do. So that was what our group talked about.
Thank you. Okay, let's just keep on going. Yeah, I wanted to just have a few minutes. Thank you for being brief. That was exactly what I asked for. So Damon, let's bring you up next. If you'll unmute, we'll get you spotlighted.
Yeah, so the group I had was primarily users and potential users of biochar. We had researchers, ranchers, land managers, and we talked about what we think of biochar as a solution for forest management. I mean, the potential is very strong in terms of solving the biomass bottleneck, as Eva mentioned, and finding an outlet for the low value material, as well as possibly improving the quality of the soils, carbon storage, water holding capacity. So that's all very clear. We also discussed salt cedar restoration and the potential for biochar to be produced from salt cedar and used to restore riparian areas. And there was questions about what effect the content of the biochar would have on the soils downstream. When we got into the barriers and opportunities for biochar, the cost is obviously the biggest barrier. And some of the opportunities we talked about kind of followed from Nate's presentation about more accurately valuing ecosystem services. We talked about water holding capacity, in really dry areas is increasingly important because there's no way to increase the water supply really. We also talked about insurance. If insurance costs reflect the flood risk and also the fire risk, then that could motivate more forest restoration and biochar production. So I think that's kind of what we talked about in a nutshell. Is some good conversations.
Thank you very much, Tim. I think this was really good time. I'm sorry, that was Damon. I would like to go to Tim. So thank you very much, Damon. And Tim, unmute there and we'll spotlight you too.
Probably the take home out of our breakout session was probably the role that private landowners, maybe as an untapped resource. between the session yesterday I facilitated and this one, there's a lot of good examples of private forest landowners and agricultural producers to, even, at their own cost and resources, develop these in-place production systems and applications. And then, to carry that through and utilize that same community for education and outreach purposes. We spoke, I think there'll be some, and is excitement around the new NRCS practice that was kind of codified on a trial basis in some states, at least, for cost sharing, application of biochar as part of their cost share assistance NRCS provides to private landowners. So some excitement there to see ultimately how that new practice gets adopted and what some of the results, and who knows, maybe they'll choose to formalize it as part of their overall program.
Thank you very much, Tim. I just had a request from somebody saying their bandwidth is kind of low, and I don't know if, and I'm not asking our co-hosts to turn off all their cameras, but maybe some of our participants just, because we all had our cameras on for that event, just turn them off again, and we'll maybe that'll help it run more quickly here. Whoops, just lost Tim. Yeah, he always working with us on it. So let's see here. Any other, Michael, help me out here. Are we missing? I know I've got more facilitators we could go to. I'd like to pick up one or two more before we jump over.
Hi, Chris.
Darren.
This is Darren.
Hey, Darren.
How are you?
Right. Very good. How did your talk go?
Good. We had a nice chat. We were focused on the negative side. We talked about the barriers to biochar in the Western US. We had two of our members of our group were producers or potential producers who are facing challenges, one in particular with financing. And he pointed out, you go ask, and it's tied into, it's difficult to find financing for big infrastructure projects related to biochar, partly because nobody has heard of biochar. So that leads into the next problem. How do we get more people aware of it? Events like this are certainly helpful. I suspect one of the speakers in our group pointed out that we're kind of preaching to each other here. A lot of the people that are participating today already have an interest and knowledge of it. I'm sure we're expanding that a little bit today, but how do we get beyond our own little groups? I've noticed, I did a research recently, I think New York Times has had 4 biochar sort of references or articles to date. So the word's slowly getting out. Similar on National Public Radio, I've heard a handful of articles over the years about it, but yeah, pretty slow. Those are what we see, our group saw as the main barriers to more widespread adoption.
Thank you.
Hey, Chris.
I think invest how, Doug, you want to add something?
Yeah, I'll go real quick. Hey, Darren,
okay, great.
You had a scaled big box kiln next to your drip torch there. So as much as I like prescribed fire, but yeah, we had a great group last 2 sessions. When we got the breakout session ended, we had people talking. So anyways, that is to say we had good participation. We had folks from New Mexico and Utah and Montana and Georgia. One of the interesting things I thought from Celia Peterson from Park City was, so here we have, well, Park City's been pretty ambitious, I think were her words, and aggressive, if you will, with trying to meet climate goals. And so you have a city that's interested in biochar, and the comment was almost like not appreciating where the biochar comes from. Like, oh, I just need biochar. It's great for, let's say, the water retention and the other benefits we've talked about. But maybe that lack of connection of where it's coming from. Whereas Ashley just got a grant up in Montana with the BLM using small diameter timber and biochar, and it's almost the opposite. We have all this material and no place to put it. So anyways, this interesting opportunity of linking an urban need, let's say in Park City, with our rural supplies. So I'll stop there. We had a great discussion. Thanks.
Thank you very much.